TCI is brought to you by Spendthrift Stallion Tisway, one of the fastest Grade 1 winning milers of all time, participating in Spendthrift's Share the Upside program in 2014.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. Alongside Joel Cunningham, I'm John Siegel. Well, Joel, it's Tampa Bay Derby weekend. We're going to talk about that race here in a little bit. But first, let's recap the Gotham. You know, we went into this race, we had Samraat, a horse that is undefeated going into the race. He's a New York bred, and we knew he was going to face his toughest test to date. Tell me, how did he fare in this race?
I thought he fared pretty well, but to me it was almost like a rerun of the Withers. I mean, you mentioned he faced a little better group, and he was blowing away New York breds earlier in the year, and he clearly got better going around 2 turns where he had a double-digit win against New York breds. But when he started facing graded company, open company, you know, we remember that match race in the Withers against Uncle Si, where basically they were clicking off 12s. He stalked Uncle Si. I thought he had dead aim on him. You know, went by him pretty easily, but then he swapped over to his wrong lead, John. And to me, he was just green in the stretch. He didn't drop down and run his best race from the 16th pole to the wire, in my opinion. That's why the margin of victory really wasn't a lot. And that was just my assessment of the race. Well, I kind of saw the same thing in the Gotham. He was parked out wide, in trouble, set a very ordinary pace, in my opinion, in his first race off the layoff. Uncle Si was stalking as well, had the in-between trip at the top of the stretch. I thought Samraat made the lead pretty easily, and I expected him to spurt away. Well, he never did. He actually swapped his leads properly this time, but he just never put separation amongst the other 2 horses. So my read was it was more the fact that he was just doing enough to win the race and wasn't really focused in on blowing the doors off this field like I still think that he has. He has that upside in the tank, in my opinion. I think there was more of that than in trouble and Uncle Si fighting back on the rail. And that was just my read on it. So now I'm very interested to see. I mean, heck, you can't knock winning. Right. The horse is 5 for 5 and clearly a big-time talent. He has such a smooth efficiency of stride. You know, I really think he has a big upside, you know, being by Noble Causeway. We'll find out next time out at 1 1/8. You know, when he'll face even another group that's even better than what he's faced today, maybe Honor Code and horses like that, he's going to have to put his running shoes on, focus, and finish to the wire in there, because I'm not so sure we've seen that yet.
All right, so he's going to have to step up when he goes to the Wood Memorial, but my question is, did he step up on the TCI top 10, or did you decide to leave him right where he was?
You know, I'm glad I haven't made any changes on this top 10 this week, and that's where we want to be. We want to try to get to where we have a good read on these horses. We're not changing them up. And, you know, we had a pretty turbulent February in that regard, feeling these horses out. But starting off March now, we're going to stick with the top 10 that we had, John. We're not going to change anything. I think I have a good evaluation on Samraat, so he's going to stay in that 8 spot for now. We'll find out what he does in Wood Memorial and maybe make an evaluation at that point based on results going forward. But you saw one horse in the top 5, and that's Shared Belief. He may no longer be on the list next week. Just depends. I'm not liking the signs I'm getting from those connections. To me, he could be off the Derby trail now, because I'm not hearing the right things from that camp, and obviously he's going to miss this weekend, San Felipe.
Well, another horse that I saw there on the list was Conquest Titan. Joel, I bring him up because we're going to transition now into the Tampa Bay Derby. We see him in this race. But first I want to talk about a horse, Vince Ramos. You know, he won the prep for this race. Looks like he is peaking at the right time. Tell me, what do you think of him?
You know, what's interesting is we just talked about Samraat doing just what he had to do to win. I kind of feel the same way about Vince Ramos. I mean, you watch this colt, and they obviously thought a lot about him. He's a beautiful colt. I've seen him in person. They paid a lot of money for him. He's a son from the first crop of Pioneer of the Nile. And even when he broke his maiden at Gulfstream, John, he did just what he had to do to win. So he didn't run a fast time, so he didn't really come on anybody's radar. Well, they run him in the Sam Davis, and he had a breakout win there. I mean, to get a graded stakes victory there, where he was somewhat of a price in that race, you know, over Harpoon, the other horse you see there for Todd Pletcher. But if you watch Vince Ramos in the Sam Davis, when he makes the lead, you know, in the stretch around the 16th pole, he totally pulls up. I mean, this horse totally hits a brick wall, and you can see it happen instead of going on by. Well, once they come back to him, he re-engages, John, and does just enough to finish in front at the wire and hold off Harpoon. That tells me there's a lot more in the tank with Vince Ramos. I don't think we've seen his best yet. So he's a horse like Samraat. To me, you can throw the speed figures out on these horses. When you think there's more in the tank, there's more upside. I think this colt, he's going to be asked to run a little bit faster this time because he faces a better group. He needs a well-timed ride from Edgar Prado, and maybe we'll see another big jump forward for Vince Ramos.
Well, another horse that's going to need a well-timed ride, and that is Conquest Titan. You know, this is a horse that he's really just a one-run kind of horse. He just closes into these races. Tell me, what do you think of his chances on this track?
Ever since they, 2 races back, turned him into a one-run closer, as you mentioned, Johnny, showed a dynamic turn of foot. You know, I think you can really scrap his form prior to that, especially when he came off Lasix in the Breeders' Cup. I mean, his 2 races last 2 times out were key races. I mean, he beat General A-Rod, obviously the runner-up in the Fountain of Youth, and came back in the Holy Bull, was up against it on speed by his track, where Cairo Prince ran away from, was still a good runner-up in there, showed a good turn of foot late. Yeah. So to me, he projects going forward very favorably. Staying at a mile and 16th here, they passed the Fountain of Youth, gave him another, little time off to be able to come fresher into the Tampa Bay Derby in here. To me, from a class standpoint, he's the horse to beat in this race. Just a matter of, does he handle that Tampa surface? Because he's never run over it. A lot of these horses haven't. And we all know that Tampa surface, John, can be very quirky. A lot of horses don't handle it.
All right, well, let's go out to California now, and let's talk about the San Felipe. Joel, we got some good horses in here. Even though we are, missing a few, like you said, looks like Shared Belief's not going to be in here. I know that On Purpose Candy Boy is not going to run in this race. So tell me, who do you like in this race, and who do you think is the standout in here?
To me, it's very interesting duel between 3 speed horses really trying to affirm themselves as top quality colts around 2 turns. And that's Cristo, who will be on the lead. That's John Sadler's second stringer right now. Candy Boy obviously passing this race. And you mentioned Share Belief not going in it either. You have Byron, who's going to be your favorite, with Bob Baffert. A ton of speed. Byron's been impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, he's won his first 2 starts by a combined 18.5 lengths. So he's shown a lot there. But to me, I need to see a little more. I thought that allowance win, he was able to control the pace, power home. I still want to see Byron going forward beyond a mile to see if he can produce the same results, especially when he has to face quality speed like Cristo and even his stablemate, Midnight Hawk. Midnight Hawk's been training well. We were very disappointed in his performance last time out in the Robert Lewis, John. I mean, here's a colt that, to me, affirmed himself as more of a one-turn type colt. He was very flat. Bob Baffert has liked the way he's trained since then, so he's given him another chance because you don't have to face Share Belief. This is a pretty weak group. He's getting another chance in here, but we'll see about Midnight Hawk. To me, there's question marks to be answered between those 3, and if they don't watch out, the Calbred could run over him late, and that's California Chrome, a horse that's just getting better and better. I'm not so sure he's up to this quality of field yet, but it's not the greatest San Felipe bunch I've ever seen. So be interested to see. Between those 4 mix of horses, we should learn a lot about maybe what the California picture looks like going forward.
All right, well, thank you, Joel, and thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We'll see how this weekend's races shake out in the top 10.